Okay, welcome to today's meeting of the Development Control and Regulatory Board for today, 23rd of July 2020. This meeting is being broadcast live to the public, and the webcast will be available for viewing on the County Council's website. Actually, it'll be on YouTube after the meeting. So just to remind everybody and those watching at home that apart from the chairman, all the other members of the board and the officers presenting today are joining online, and can ask all officers and members to mute their microphone until they wish or are invited to speak. And then when you're speaking, please make sure your video is on so that people at home can see who's talking. I'm now going to go around and ask everybody to introduce themselves just to make sure the public at home know who's present and taking part in the meeting. I understand there are no substitutes today. So, Mr. Bentley, are you present? Mr. Bentley? No? Mr. Charlesworth? No? Mr. Coxon's here with me.
I'm here.
Mr. Crooks, are you present?
Yes, here, thank you.
Okay. Mr. Gamble, are you present? No. Okay. Mr. Harrison?
Yes, I'm here, thank you.
Okay. Mr. Licorice, are you present? Mr. Licorice, are you online?
Yes, sorry, Ewan, yes,
Okay.
I'm present.
Mr. Phillimore, are you present?
Yes, present. Thank you, Ewan.
Okay. Mrs. Richards? Mrs. Richards, are you there?
I am, thank you.
Mr. Sheehan?
Yes, Ewan, I'm here.
Mrs. Maggie Wright?
Yes, I'm here, Ewan, thank you.
Okay, Mr. Wyatt? Are you present, Mr. Wyatt? No. Okay, we'll just go back to the beginning of the list. Mr. Bentley, are you present? No. Mr. Charlesworth? No. Mr. Gamble? Mr. Gillard, are you there? Mr. Gillard? Okay. Well, the meeting is still core, so we will proceed with the meeting today.
Ewan, you've not called me out, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you, Mr. Gillard. I did call you out.
Yeah. Sorry, I couldn't hear you.
All right, brilliant. Thank you. I'll mark you as present. Okay. So as this is the first DCRB meeting after the annual council meeting, the thing we have to do first is appoint a chairman for the 2020-2021 year. And at the county council meeting on the 8th of July, Mr. Coxon was nominated as the chairman of the Development Control and Regulatory Board. Would somebody like to propose Mr. Coxon? Thank you, Mr. Gillard. Do we have a seconder?
Second,
Thank you.
Councillor Harrison.
All happy to go with Mr. Coxon for Chair 2020-2021?
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you very much. Okay, so Mr. Coxon, you are appointed as Chair of the Development Control and Regulatory Board for this coming council year, and I will hand over to you for this meeting.
Thank you, Ewan. Thank you for your support, members. The next item is election of Deputy Chairman. I'll nominate from the chair Mr. Gillard. If there is a seconder out there.
Yes, I second that, Mr. Chairman. Councillor Harrison.
Yeah, thank you, Dan. Any other nominations? No, that looks like it's no then, and Tony Gillard, you're Deputy Chairman for this coming year.
Thank you, Chairman.
Number 3, it may not be 3 on your list, but minutes of the meeting held on the 11th of June. I propose to take these minutes held on the 11th of June are taken as read, confirmed as signed. Is everyone agreed with that? Thank you, Tony.
Agreed.
All agreed? Yeah. Okay.
Agreed.
Great.
Thank you. The next item then is question time. No questions have been received. Further item, questions asked by members under Standing Orders 735. No questions there either. To advise of any other items the Chairman has decided to take urgent elsewhere on the agenda. There are none of those. Declaration of interest. It is noted that all members who are also members of parish, town, district, council or liaison committee will have a personal interest in those applications which relate to areas covered by those authorities. Are there any other declarations?
Yes, Chairman. Councillor Harrison. I'm a member of Ashby de la Zouch Town Council, which is the subject matter this afternoon within that area of the school. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Dan. I'll declare that same interest, but I assume that will be covered under what I've read out already. But we'll doubly be sure anyway.
Yeah.
Okay. Item 8, presentation of petitions. There are no petitions being received. Going on to the main item on the agenda today, then, that's the application for a school at Hollywell Farm, Burton Road, Ashby. Amelia Mystery is going to present this item. Can I please ask members to allow officers to present their full report before asking questions? To indicate that you have a question, please raise the yellow hand and I will call upon you one at a time. Please be sure everyone has their say. I finalise by quickly calling on all members asking if you have anything further to add. So over to you, Amelia, then, please, if you're there.
Thank you, Chair. So this application is for a proposed new 210 place primary school with associated landscape and external works, and Leicestershire County Council are the applicant. So this application relates to a proposed new build primary school in Ashby de la Zouch to meet the increased demand for school places in the locality. The proposed school was granted outline planning permission by North West Leicestershire District Council back in October 2014. This application proposes to construct a single-storey new build primary school with associated landscaping and external works, including a new site access, car parking, bin store, retaining wall and sprinkler tank. It is proposed that 15 full-time equivalent staff comprising 12 full-time staff and 6 part-time staff would be employed. The school site would be open between the hours of 8 in the morning and 6 p.m. on Monday to Friday only. So that you can see from this location plan that the site is located on the former site of Hollywell Spring Farm and lies off Burton Road in the town of Ashby de la Zouch. This slide indicates the red line application area for the proposed development. To the south lies a retail development and to the west lies a care facility. To the north lies a partially constructed housing development which is at a higher level than the application site. Residential properties which were remaining to be constructed as part of the wider scheme granted by the District Council would sit adjacent to the northern edge of the site boundary. Adjacent to the eastern boundary of the site lies copse of mature trees and a small stream known as the Hollywell Beck, which is a tributary of the River Mease. To the east of the site boundary lies a residential area separated from the eastern boundary of the site by the copse and the Hollywell Beck, and these residential properties are the closest to the proposed development. The copse provides a visual screen between the site and these residential properties. As part of the wider scheme, reserve matters have been approved for a road which would bound the western side of the site, and part of this road has already been constructed, known as School Lane. However, this road has not yet been adopted by the local highway authority as it's required to be finished. Levels vary across the site from west to east, and they drop down from 145 metres in the west to 138 metres in the east. This slide just indicates the wider scheme which was granted planning permission by North West, which involved development of 400 dwellings, shop, medical centre, a care home and the proposed primary school. The shop and medical centre and the first phase of the permitted dwellings have since been constructed, and you can see here the location of the proposed school site within the wider development. This slide indicates a photograph of the wider site area facing north from the access road, School Lane. You can see the location of the school site with respect to the care facility to the west and the copse to the east. And this slide shows a closer photograph of the site area, which is facing northeast from that access road. The area comprises scrub and grass because the site has previously been cleared as part of the wider development. You can see that there's temporary storage of construction material related to the housing development adjacent, and a copse of trees which separates the residential area from the application site. This slide indicates the proposed layout for the school. Access would be gained from the northwestern corner of the site via the recently constructed road. The school buildings would comprise a total gross internal floor space of 1,300 square metres. Within the main school building, a total of 1 foundation classroom, 1 specialist classroom and 2 infant classrooms and 4 junior classrooms would be provided, in addition to many other ancillary rooms. All of the classrooms would be south-facing and would have a view of the external play areas. This slide shows the proposed landscaping scheme for the site. And prior to construction, it is proposed that some existing trees on the site would be removed to enable the area to be cleared for the construction works for the school, the soft and hard landscaping areas, and the retaining wall. The southern area of the site would be re-landscaped to form a slope down to surrounding levels. Some existing small trees and vegetation would be removed to allow construction of the slope. This would comprise the removal of 7 trees, 2 of moderate quality and 5 of low quality. The resulting slope would be seeded and planted with native trees and shrubs. In order to construct a retaining wall, which is required along the eastern boundary of the site, it would be necessary to remove part of a group of trees within the copse along the Holywell Beck. It is proposed to also undertake works to coppice these trees to allow them to regenerate. Replacement tree and shrub planting is proposed, which would comprise native species and fruiting material. Bird and bat boxes would also be installed in this area. Ecology, Landscape and the National Forest Company are satisfied with the proposed compensatory landscaping and biodiversity measures which have been proposed. This slide shows a visualization of the school facing northwest from the foundation playground. You can see that the school would be 29 metres in width with an overall length of 76 metres, and that the height of the building would vary up to a maximum height of 7 metres where the school hall would be present. The main school building would be predominantly clad in timber, and the pitch roofs of the classrooms would be finished with aluminium. This design adopts a national forest or locally inspired identity. This slide shows another visualization of the school facing north from the playing field. You can see that the external levels surrounding the building would ensure a fully accessible building, and all classrooms would have a view out over the external play spaces and sports fields. During the consultation process, 3 letters of representation were received, comprising 2 comments and 1 objection. Concerns were raised regarding antisocial behaviour in the local area and litter within the Holywell Beck, and the integrity of boundaries of adjoining properties. The objection raised the following reasons to refuse the application, which include tree removal, site access, lighting, noise and parking. These matters have been considered within the assessment provided within the report. Additionally, concerns were raised regarding a stile on a nearby public footpath. However, these concerns fall outside matters for consideration as part of this application, They have been passed on for investigation to the Public Rights of Way team. Overall, it is considered that the scale, design and location of the proposed development would not result in significant adverse impacts upon the immunity of residents, and the proposed development would provide the community and wider population with a school to meet demand within the locality. The provision of a landscaping scheme which enhances the existing landscaping on site would compensate for the proposed loss of trees and would provide for a net gain in biodiversity within the National Forest. The proposed parking and access arrangements for the school are considered satisfactory and to meet expected demand at the site. And the provision of a site-specific travel plan would address any local parking and traffic issues. Therefore, subject to planning controls, the proposed development would not have any significant effects on the internationally important features of the River Meath SAC or SSI. So, overall, the proposed development is therefore recommended for approval, subject to recommended conditions. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Tony Gillard, you indicated you want to ask a question, Tony.
I don't want to ask a question, Chairman. I think the impressions look very good indeed. And I'll happily move the recommendations, Chairman.
Oh. Well, as a local member, Tony, I was going to do that myself, but...
I'll withdraw unreservedly, Chairman.
Thank you, Tony. Dan, you wanted to speak.
Well, I was going to support and second whoever was going to do it, and I wasn't going to go first on that. I would actually say in those comments that I'm saddened that the parking is possibly inadequate with 15 full staff and 13. So if a visitor was to turn up or more than one visitor would have problems. And the tightness of the site means it'll be hard for expansion. Now, I did go to an exhibition when this was introduced to the public and looked at it, and I understand the constraints. So I'm not being silly, but it is just a little bit sad that we're now building for the future and the road access is going to be tight and on site will be tight. And it's just so sad that this is new projects, but I understand the cost factor in it and how we're trying to do things. So I'm very happy to second that if the chair's going to approve it. But I'd also talk about, is it the southeastern part of it, where you've got a filtration tank? The report describes it as a potential area of social problems. That's probably worth just looking at and making sure that we're ahead of the game and we don't get caught out with that. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah.
Amelia, are you able to address any of those points that Mr. Harrison has raised? I understand the just raising them as points, but is there anything you can address on there at all?
Thank you, Chair. I mean, with regards to the parking, Highways have looked at this application in detail and are satisfied with the parking arrangement and the turning facilities within the site. There has been a revision to the layout of the site since it was consulted on originally, in that there is no longer pedestrian access proposed in that northeastern corner where you see the sprinkler tank, and this revision and removal of pedestrian access means that the school pupils will not be passing through past the sprinkler tank, and therefore this shouldn't have any sort of antisocial or overbearing impact on their entranceway, as they would be required to go along westward to the main site entrance where there's now a dedicated pedestrian access way.
Brilliant. Thank you very much.
Okay. Janice, we've got you next.
Thank you, Chairman. Yeah, I support this proposal, but I agree with Mr. Harrison regarding only 13 parking places. And that is a concern to me. Also, the sprinkler tank, I know we've had trouble in my area with a recent one, and can you just give me some more information regarding the sighting and what will be done to protect it from view, please?
Yep. Amelia, are you?
Sorry?
Amelia, are you able to answer?
Yeah,
that?
thank you, Chair. With regard to the sprinkler tank, the plant and machinery of the tank will be enclosed within its housing, and that will be timber clad as well. So it should blend into the site in terms of design and visual amenity. It will blend in with the overall sort of locally inspired design that the school has gone with. And there is some soft landscaping to go along that northern boundary, which should help sort of soften the landscape for anyone that travels along that path.
Okay, thank you for that. Just one other thing, Chair, as well.
Yeah.
The school keep clear markings. Will this be a civil enforcement? The civil enforcement officers enforce that they cannot park there, please.
Amelia.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, so the keep clear markings are supposed to be those that are mandatory, so they will be enforceable.
Okay, that's lovely. Thank you very much for that. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you, Janice. Maggie Wright.
Thank you, Chair. Amelia, you mentioned and referred to part of a constructed road not yet adopted because it needs to be finished. And I think in the report also it mentions it. Now, I'm just concerned about the risk of non-completion being a private road and then the maintenance going forward. Do we have some clarification on that, that it will, that there's not a risk that it won't be finished and that it will be there because it's leading to the school?
Amelia.
Thank you, Chair. Work is taking place on the road currently. Obviously, when it's finished, it's just required to go through the technical process with highways, and they'll do the necessary approvals and adopt it. We don't have timescales for when it will be completed, but work is going on the road at the moment.
Oh, so it is being dealt with, and there's not a risk of it not being completed. Then that's fine.
Yeah, thank you, Maggie. Mr. Crooks.
Thank you, Chairman. A couple of questions and a comment, if I may. I noticed in the write-up that there was some concern about the lighting, and I just wondered about the columns. Are they going to be floods or downlighters or what? The other question was about the solar panels. Why we put in the facilities there for somebody else to put panels on, but with our drive to support climate change, why are we not putting solar panels on in the first place? Or is it just cost saving? And my comment was going to be to do with the parking, and agree with other members. 18 full-time staff with 15 spaces. That's without any visitors or any maintenance or anything else. And I know all the schools in my area, I've got problems with parking outside, but we can't do nothing about them. They're already there. But this is a new build, and really we're just asking for problems with the residents again. And we shouldn't, in my opinion, we shouldn't be building them like that. But that's just a comment. But if somebody could answer the two questions, please. Thank you, Chair.
Yeah, thank you, Bill.
Chair, it's Nick Thomas here. Would you like me to answer those? And Amelia may want to comment just in terms of the floodlighting question. In terms of solar panels, that's a matter for the Education Authority as applicant to decide whether that's what they want to provide. Obviously, they have to have regard to the council's policies when they come forward with that. But from a planning point of view, we can only assess what's in front of us, and there's no requirement in policy where we could insist upon that being a design feature. Clearly, we'd want any development of this nature to be as sustainable in terms of its construction design, but we couldn't insist on that. So that would be a matter for the Education Authority at some point in the future if they decided to add that to this building going forward. Just in terms of the car parking, there's been a few comments from members about the car parking, and this is something that members will recall from other applications we have as a typical issue when we're dealing with school applications. The design of the school will be based on criteria for the design of 210 place school premises, and that would include provision for all the different elements of a new school, so the buildings, the play space, car parking, servicing, turning, etc. And then within that, there would need to be sufficient parking space and servicing space, and there's always a balance to be struck to make sure there's enough spaces to suit those people, those members of staff that would typically be working at the school, bearing in mind that not everyone would drive. Some would car share, some would use public transport, and some would potentially live nearby and be able to walk, but also not providing too many spaces whereby then it makes it too easy an option for people to drive, whether that be visitors or staff, because that then contravenes our sustainable travel policies. So there's always a balance, and we believe the number of spaces proposed here is sufficient for the number of staff and the visitors proposed, also alongside the sustainable travel and bus pass condition that we've got as part of the recommendation. But I understand the point. It's always a sensitive issue, but we believe the number of spaces is adequate in this instance. I don't know whether Amelia can comment just in terms of Mr. Crooks's comment about flood lighting or downlighters. Do we have the detail of that, Amelia?
There is a mixture of lighting proposed on the site. The columns are only really where they're considered necessary at the entrances, I believe. And the lighting is also going to be timer controlled. And these details have been reviewed by the Environmental Health Officer at North West, who's familiar with the wider scheme and the houses that will be nearby. And he's not raised any concerns with regard to the impact of the lighting, so we consider it to be acceptable.
Thank you, Amelia. Sean Sheehan. Sean,
Mr. Chairman, thank you. I note that the issue with the access near the sprinkler tank has been dealt with, which I think is a good thing. I also share a number of members' concerns, despite what Nick has said about the amount of car parking. I think more could have been provided without causing problems. I think you're more likely to have problems on the surrounding roads with the amount of car parking that's been allocated. And also you're going to inconvenience some of the staff. So I think there is a balance to be drawn, but I think a few more spaces would have been the ticket on this one. So the only issue I've got left is with the report on the ground gas testing, which is detailed at paragraph 33 on, I think it's page 14. I've seen the geotechnical report, Amelia, which you sent me earlier. I wonder if you could just give us a little bit more detail from that in terms of what gases have been tested for and what the sort of thresholds are, if you've got that kind of information. Thank you.
Amelia, please.
Thank you, Chair. I don't have this information in front of me. There were two technical appendices provided by the applicant, which have been looked at by the environmental protection team who specialise in ground contamination at North West Leicestershire, and they're satisfied with the work that's been undertaken and recommended conditions to address that. But no, I don't have the limits for all the contaminants which have been tested for, unfortunately.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, that's fine. I mean, I've read the report. I'm satisfied. I just wondered if there's anything from there that you wanted to share with the meeting, just give a bit more completeness to what's in the written report today.
I think she's probably gone as far as you can. Amelia, have you any further to add? I thought you'd concluded.
Yes. So what Mr. Sheehan, I think, is referring to is he's previously queried with me where it says that no specific measures are required with regards to protecting the school building against carbon dioxide or methane or radon. He had raised with me previously whether this would include carbon monoxide, which it does. but I've not listed all the contaminants within the assessment report.
Okay, thank you.
So I presume that there's no concerns about carbon monoxide then?
It doesn't seem so. Are you satisfied with that comment, Amelia?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Phillimore.
Thank you, Chair. Can I just take an opportunity to grab a couple of positives here? First and foremost, what a pretty building that is. So well done to the architects and the designers on that one. I find the fact that it is effectively adjacent to an extra care facility, whether by design or coincidence, to be utterly inspired. That is something we've long aspired to start integrating and bringing children closer to those facilities. So well done for that. I echo the concerns about parking, and it's outside of this remit. It's perhaps one for the Highway Authority itself to consider when it adopts that road, to look at actually double yellow lining. We know what will happen if we don't have parking restrictions on that road and on that junction. So it's one really for the future, Nick and Amelia, for the Highway Authority when they actually look to adopt that road. It is what it is, but as I say, for me, the two massive positives: what a pretty building, and next to an extra care facility, brilliant. Well done. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Phillimore.
Chairman, sorry, I was just going to add, if I may, I'm happy to feed back to both to our highway colleagues and to our colleagues in corporate resources in terms of the design of the building, just to consider for future reference, really, to feedback in relation to car parking. If that is a general feeling about the design, we can ask our colleagues to perhaps give that a little bit more thought for the future in terms of whether or not additional spaces can be provided, so that we can give members a bit more comfort in terms of the spaces when they're designing these types of facilities.
Yeah, I don't really see why we couldn't send a note to applicants with them comments, Nick. It's always helpful, and I think sometimes that people do feedback comments like that, good or bad. I'm going to move if no more speakers, I was going to remove the recommendation on page 33. I mean, the only reason I've done it that we usually come to the division member first and let them speak and give them an opportunity to propose anything. Well, being as this is in Ashby, my division, I thought probably a good idea for me to propose it. This school is...
Chairman, I did withdraw, so you're open to move it.
Yeah, I know you did, Tony. Yeah, thank you. I mean, the school is required. I mean, there's 400 new houses in the vicinity of this school that's been built, and the school was part of the overall plan to provide education for those houses. So as I say, I'll move the recommendation on page 33. I believe it was seconded by Dan Harrison. If we're all in favour, I'll read the names out of the people on the list, which starts with Mr. Bentley. Would you say whether you're for or against, please? Mr. Bentley? Mr. Charlesworth? Are you for or against? Mr. Coxon, I'm for. Mr. Crooks?
For.
Mr. Gamble? Mr. Gamble? Mr. Gillard?
For.
Mr. Harrison?
For.
Mr. Licorice?
For.
Mr. Phillimore?
For.
Mrs. Richards?
For.
Mr. Sheehan?
For.
Mrs. Wright?
For.
Mr. Wyatt? Michael Wyatt? No reply. Well, that looks to be pretty unanimous. And thank you for your support in Ashford. That leaves a couple of items left. Any other item the chairman has decided to take as urgent? Well, I've already said that there was no urgent items earlier on in the agenda. Next one is chairman's announcements. The only thing I have to announce really is the next meeting is on the 13th of August. And finally to say thank you for taking part in the meeting. And that's the meeting closed. Thank you very much.